I want you to close your eyes. Once you close your eyes, I want you to think 30 seconds in your head. Once you think 30 seconds pass, open your eyes and let me know. Do you understand the test?
Yes.
Officer Adolfo Muriel demonstrates what he would do if he pulled over a driver under the influence of a drug like marijuana.
Drugs will make the eyelids flutter, so I'm going to take note of that. Of the person, how it starts to sway.
Muriel is a California Highway Patrol officer and a drug recognition expert, or DRE for short.
Drug recognition experts have additional training in detecting and determining whether or not a person is under the influence or a specific category of drugs. Us DREs, we use a drug matrix. And on the drug matrix on the back of our cards, it has all the categories of drugs and the effects that they have. So when I do an evaluation, I'm looking for those effects. I'm looking for those signs and symptoms.
Muriel says in the 2 years since the sale of recreational marijuana became legal, he's seen a rise in vehicle crashes.
Now that people that smoke marijuana, they tend to smoke marijuana before they go to bed and then immediately after they wake up. The problem is that they smoke marijuana when they wake up and then they go to work. And now we're seeing crashes, DUI crashes, in the mornings. After before we didn't have that.
Marijuana is hard to police. THC, the compound in marijuana that gets you high, affects everyone differently. So traditional tools used on drunk drivers, like breathalyzers, don't work. And California doesn't have a legal limit for drugged driving, like with alcohol. So it's up to Muriel and other DREs to decide whether someone is under the influence. Muriel says California has about 1,400 DREs. That's the most in the nation. But he thinks the state needs a lot more. That's because cannabis consumption keeps going up. In West Hollywood, the original Cannabis Cafe opened in October. It's the first eatery in the nation where customers can consume marijuana products with their meals. Ricardo Baca is a renowned independent marijuana journalist.
There is open consumption happening all around us. There's a concentrates menu, flower menu. It just says that we're finally entering an era of normalization.
Baca says marijuana has become a mainstream drug, much like alcohol, and it's still unclear how to regulate it. But, he says, relying on drug recognition experts' opinions instead of a scientific tool is problematic.
They're using the roadside sobriety tests that we're familiar from black and white movies. It's like, touch your nose, and that's how they're telling, are you high or are you not? So there's no scientific objective, and that's problematic.
That's why the UC San Diego Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research is trying to address the problem.
Make a left at the next intersection.
A driver, in this case me, hits the gas and drives down a busy road. At first, it's an easy trip. But soon, I feel like I'm trying to be careful right now. Thomas Marcotte is the co-director of the Cannabis Research Center. He uses this driving simulation machine to research how people behave when they're stoned.
It's a completely interactive simulator with gas and brake pedal, steering wheel, crashes, auditory sounds, etc. And then they'll do about a 25-minute drive, and that drive is designed to try to mimic as best we can things you might encounter in the real world.
These types of studies have been happening for a while, but Marcotte says they have their limitations. For example, people often use different amounts of pot.
But sometimes they look at just a couple of the field sobriety tests. They may look at low doses. They don't always look at people who are regular users. So one of the things that our study looks to do is to say if we take people who are regular users, the people most likely to go on the road, we want to see, well, what would that look like on the road?
The study also tests other tools that might tell if someone is too high, like a memory test on an iPad. Marcotte says we've long studied how people behave when they're drunk, but not so much when they're high.
The impression is, in most research, is that with cannabis, people tend to go the other direction, tend to become more cautious, tend to drive slower. So it's a very different kind of behavior you might see on the road. That's not true for everyone. So how do you go about identifying those changes?
Marcotte says close to 200 regular pot smokers have gone through his driving simulation. He's excited to see what the data show, but he says the study will not be a catch-all solution for law enforcement.
We haven't looked at edibles, so dabbing, this is where someone gets a highly concentrated form of THC and heats it up very quickly and gets a big dose of THC all at once. We can't do that kind of research because those materials aren't available from the federal government. So there are a lot of questions when it comes to public health and safety that researchers right now just are not able to openly address.
Law enforcement won't be able to use any new technologies from this research until they're approved by the state, which can take time. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.